OpenAI fast-tracks an AI smartphone to rival the iPhone, Apple pays $250 million for faking its Siri features, and NVIDIA plans to mount liquid-cooled AI data centers on the side of your house. Welcome to today's Daily Rundown. I am your host, Anna. This podcast is researched and produced by Etienne Newman, senior software engineer from Université Laval, based in Calgary, Alberta. Today, we perform a forensic autopsy on the decentralization of intelligence this Wednesday, May 6th, 2026. The artificial intelligence industry is hitting the physical limits of centralized data centers, forcing a massive pivot to the edge. Supply chain analysts reveal that OpenAI has moved up the mass production of a custom-built AI phone to 2027, aiming to sell 30 million units to finally bypass Apple and Google's operating systems. To solve the crippling energy shortage, NVIDIA is partnering with a startup to install mini, decentralized data centers directly onto the exterior walls of residential homes, tapping into unused local grid capacity. Meanwhile, the human cost of this AI integration is accelerating. Following Coinbase's massive layoffs, PayPal has just announced it will eliminate 20% of its workforce to shift toward AI-driven productivity. Before we dive into the data, I have a brief strategic request. The algorithms governing the app you are listening on right now dictate what intelligence reaches your feed. To ensure you never miss our highest-rated episodes, please hit follow or subscribe to the DJAMGAMIND channel on Apple Podcasts to always listen completely ads-free. It is a completely free action that takes just 1 second, but it is the most effective way to help us scale this independent research. Today's episode is brought to you by IREA. When frontier labs are building their own smartphones and corporations are cutting 20% of their staff, your organization needs flawless technical intelligence. A special thank you to IREA for sponsoring today's forensic briefing. Let's unravel the day.
Before we begin today's briefing, a note for the brands listening. If you want to reach the true architects of the AI revolution, the technical leaders actually building the stack, not just the tourists, DJAMGAMIND offers select premium partnership opportunities. Let us position your product directly in front of the ultimate technical buyer. Visit jamgamind.com/partners.
So for the last few years, I think we've collectively thought about artificial intelligence as this massive glowing brain floating in a giant glass jar.
Right, like a sci-fi movie.
Exactly. Like you want to write an email or generate an image, so you ask a question from your laptop, and a signal zips out to a multi-billion-dollar facility somewhere out in the desert. The big centralized brain does its magic, and the answer zips back.
It's a clean, contained system. Or at least it was.
Yeah, it was. Because if we look at the tech landscape for today, May 6, 2026, the physics of that centralized system have completely maxed out the U.S. power grid. The glass jar is basically shattering.
The brain is quite literally spilling out.
So today we are performing a forensic autopsy of the Daily News to show you exactly how this is happening. The guiding theme of this deep dive is the decentralization of intelligence.
Because the industry is hitting a structural wall. And to solve it, they're aggressively pushing intelligence to the edge.
Right, meaning into your home, into your pocket, and into the operating system of the device you are using right now to listen to this.
And the domino that started this whole panic, the catalyst, was the realization that massive centralized GPU clusters are essentially eating themselves.
Yeah, I saw the quote in the sources from Greg Steinbrecher. He's OpenAI's workload lead, and he calls conventional large-scale AI training a failure amplifier.
Which is such a descriptive term.
It sounds catastrophic, honestly. Like, what does failure amplifier actually mean in the context of building a model?
Well, think about it like this. When you link tens of thousands of processors together to train a massive model, they have to communicate constantly.
Okay.
But GPUs process math faster than current network switches can actually route the data. So if one tiny thing breaks in that massive desert data center, like a single switch fails, or a cable misfires.
Or just a momentary network blip.
Exactly. The ripple effect forces the entire cluster to grind to a halt. The GPUs just sit there idle, waiting for the network to catch up.
Wow.
And when you are running a 100-megawatt facility, idle time means you're burning millions of dollars an hour just powering processors that are doing absolutely nothing.
Which perfectly explains the software band-aid OpenAI just rolled out. They unveiled this new protocol called MRC.
Multi-path reliable connection.
Right, and I was digging into the source material on this, and they didn't build it alone. They formed this massive coalition with Microsoft, AMD, Broadcom, NVIDIA, and Intel.
Basically everyone who makes the hardware.
Yeah, the whole stack. And the lead networking guy there, Mark Hanley, said MRC relies on something called packet spraying. And the best way I can picture this for you is think of a city's traffic grid. Let's say you have 10,000 cars.
Which represent our data packet.
Exactly. 10,000 cars, and you need to get them across town immediately.
And the legacy way of doing that is forcing all 10,000 cars down one massive multi-lane highway.
Yes, and if there is a single fender bender on that highway, you get catastrophic gridlock. Nothing moves. That is your failure amplifier.
Right.
But what packet spraying does instead is it simultaneously scatters those 10,000 cars across hundreds of different side streets, alleys, and avenues. It just sends the data everywhere at once.
You're completely flattening the network. I mean, the technical innovation here is that MRC detects and reroutes around those fender benders in microseconds.
It's incredible.
And it's combined with a secondary protocol called SRv6. So instead of forcing the network switches at every single intersection to figure out where the data should go on the fly.
Which takes time.
Exactly. SRv6 explicitly embeds the exact physical path into the data packet before it ever leaves. You take the decision-making burden off the physical infrastructure, which drastically reduces the energy requirements of the data center.
And this isn't just theoretical. This is already running in the wild. Oracle's site in Abilene, Texas, and Microsoft's Fairwater supercomputers are using this setup right now. They even use it to train GPT 5.5.
They're good.
But here's the piece I need you to clarify for me, because this stood out. OpenAI just open-sourced this protocol. Why would they give away the secret sauce for keeping their data centers running efficiently?
Well, honestly, it reveals pure desperation. Yeah. Steinbrecher essentially admitted they don't want to differentiate on networking infrastructure anymore. The bottleneck is so severe that these frontier labs can no longer afford to operate in silos. I see. If every company builds proprietary network protocols, the hardware manufacturers just can't keep up, and the entire AI industry stops turning the crank. So they need a unified, open standard just to survive the compute crunch.
So MRC and packet spraying, those are software tricks to stretch the limits of centralized brains. But software routing can't fix the actual laws of physics?
No, it can't.
I mean, even if the data flows perfectly, the sheer heat and power generated by 100,000 chips in one location will physically melt the cooling systems or, collapse the regional power grid.
Which forces a geographical dispersal. If you cannot build one giant facility because the local utility company will literally cut you off, you have to fragment the data center.
You fragment it right onto the side of someone's house. I read the briefing on this, and I had to read it 3 times because it just sounds absurd. There is a California startup called Span, and they are teaming up with NVIDIA to mount mini AI data centers directly onto the exterior walls of residential homes and small businesses.
Yeah, they're rolling out these units called XFRA compute nodes. And NVIDIA is supplying their liquid-cooled RTX PRO 6,000 Blackwell Server Edition GPUs to power them.
Just casually bolting a server to a house?
Exactly. And Span is claiming they can install 8,000 of these units across a neighborhood 6 times faster and at 1/5 the cost of building a traditional centralized facility. They're actively testing this right now with Polta Group on newly built residential communities.
Okay, but I have to challenge the reality of this. Just as someone who lives in a house, why on earth would I allow a buzzing corporate AI compute node to be mounted next to my patio? Like, liquid-cooled or not, you are bolting a server farm to where my kids play.
Right. You're looking at it from a consumer comfort perspective. But we need to analyze the underlying power grid arbitrage. This is a highly calculated play. Centralized data centers are hitting the ceiling of industrial power lines. But residential neighborhoods have massive unused electrical capacity during the day when people are at work.
Oh, wow.
So Span is bypassing the industrial strain entirely by tapping into the localized margins of the suburban power grid.
So they're essentially siphoning off the unused electricity of an entire subdivision to train their models.
Precisely. Now, the homeowners will likely receive, subsidized electricity bills or direct payouts in exchange for hosting the node. But it highlights a rather cynical contradiction in the tech landscape right now.
Yeah.
We are decentralizing the physical heat, the power footprint, and the environmental impact of AI into local communities,
Right.
while the profits generated by those nodes remain strictly centralized in Silicon Valley.
Decentralizing the exhaust but keeping the revenue. That is wild.
It really is.
But this physical push to the edge, it doesn't stop at the exterior wall of your house. It is moving directly into your pocket.
The hardware pivot.
Exactly. We have a massive leak from supply chain analyst Ming-Chi Kuo. OpenAI is fast-tracking an AI agent phone with mass production aimed for early 2027, and Kuo is projecting 30 million units between 2027 and 2028.
That's a huge manufacturing run.
It is. But I just don't understand the strategy here. OpenAI is a software lab. Why are they suddenly jumping into the brutal, super low-margin business of manufacturing smartphones?
Because it's really the only way to achieve true agentic capability.
Meaning what?
Well, an AI agent isn't just a chatbot that answers questions. It's a system that takes actions on your behalf 24/7. Google's actually testing this internally right now with an agent codenamed Remy.
Okay.
But to make an agent completely frictionless, the AI needs to process the real world constantly without going through a third-party bottleneck.
The leak mentioned they're using a custom MediaTek Dimensity 9600 chipset, and it has this dual NPU architecture. Does that play into the frictionless aspect you're talking about?
Absolutely, it does. The NPU is the neural processing unit. Historically, a phone tries to process what it sees through the camera and what it hears through the microphone in the same, essentially, brain lobe.
And that slows it down.
It causes severe lag. But the dual NPU physically splits the vision and language tasks on the chip itself. It means the AI can watch your screen or your camera feed and listen to you speak simultaneously without stuttering.
Which bypasses Apple and Samsung entirely.
That is the core motivation. I mean, the leak explicitly highlights the phone's image signal processor with enhanced high dynamic range. If OpenAI relies on Apple's iPhone, they are completely at the mercy of Apple's camera permissions and hardware pipelines.
Right. Apple controls the gates.
Exactly. By controlling the device layer, the AI natively processes real-world visual sensing. It doesn't have to ask for permission to open an app. It acts as a continuous extension of your senses.
And the legacy hardware companies clearly know this is happening, which is why they are scrambling to host their own local intelligence.
Oh, big time.
I mean, Google is actively irritating Chrome users right now by silently installing their lightweight Gemini Nano model directly onto local machines just to offload compute from their servers.
Yeah.
And Apple is completely pivoting. They are opening iOS 27, iPadOS 27, and macOS 27 this fall to rival third-party AI models.
It's a monumental shift for a walled garden like Apple. They realize the smartphone is no longer just a glass screen used to access cloud services. It has to become a localized host for a highly competitive ecosystem of AI models.
Okay, so let's look at the financial reality of this entire roadmap. We have hyper-optimized network routing, thousands of server nodes bolted to residential houses, and the custom manufacturing of 30 million AI phones. That requires a staggering amount of capital.
That's phenomenal.
You're seeing Anthropic commit $200 billion to Google for cloud and chips over the next 5 years. DeepSeek, the Chinese AI lab, is raising $4 billion, which pushes them to a $50 billion valuation. The money has to come from somewhere.
And historically, when infrastructure requires that level of raw investment, companies ruthlessly cut operational costs to fund it. And the easiest target is human labor.
Which brings us to the corporate fallout. We are looking at massive disruptions in white-collar work. PayPal is deleting 20% of its workforce. 1 in 5 workers gone.
Yeah.
This mirrors Coinbase recently cutting 14% of its staff, which was about 700 people. And the stated reason from executive leadership across the board is a mandate for faster decision-making, capitalizing on AI-driven productivity and agent-driven workflows.
When tech giants and financial institutions are cutting up to 20% of their workforce to mandate AI productivity, it proves that deploying AI at the enterprise level requires more than just raw compute. It requires management infrastructure. We want to thank our sponsor, AREA, for making today's briefing possible. AREA provides the enterprise-grade AI management platform that organizations need to turn AI potential into measurable, secure workflow automation. You can find their link in the show notes.
But looking at these corporate mandates, I really have to push back on the premise. Like, if PayPal feels confident enough to fire 20% of its employees and hand those workflows over to AI agents, that AI better be flawless. Is the technology actually reliable enough to replace human judgment at that scale, or is this just executive wishful thinking?
Well, the legal system is currently deciding that very question. We are seeing severe blowback. regarding corporate accountability and the massive gap between AI marketing and AI reality.
Yeah, Apple just got hit with a $250 million class action settlement. They are paying out between $25 and $95 per eligible U.S. device.
Right.
The lawsuit claimed they saturated the airwaves promoting personalized Siri AI features to sell iPhones, but those features essentially didn't exist at launch. But I mean, isn't selling vaporware kind of standard practice in tech? Companies announce things years before they're ready all the time.
Announcing a future product is standard. Building an immediate, multi-billion-dollar hardware sales cycle on the promise of software that physically cannot operate on the device that crosses the line into consumer fraud.
Oh, I see the distinction.
Yeah, the courts are finally losing patience with companies selling the future to fund the present.
And the legal scrutiny isn't just about vaporware. It's targeting the foundational data these models rely on. 5 major publishers, Macmillan, Hachette, McGraw-Hill, Elsevier, and Cengage, along with the author Scott Turow, have launched a massive class action lawsuit against Meta.
Oh no, this was huge.
And they are suing Mark Zuckerberg personally, not just the corporation, for pirating copyrighted books to train the Llama AI platform.
If we look at this through the lens of digital rights advocacy, this is the most critical vulnerability of the decentralization push.
Oh, so?
Meta's defense is the classic tech argument. Training AI on copyrighted material qualifies as fair use. But the publishers are arguing that the entire foundation of this decentralized intelligence, the very models making financial institutions feel confident enough to fire thousands of workers, is built on the uncompensated extraction of human labor and creativity.
So, to summarize the fallout here, we have multi-million-dollar payouts over vaporware, executives being personally sued for mass piracy, and massive job losses to fund the server costs. It paints a fairly bleak picture of the industry.
It does.
But looking at the sources, the underlying science itself is actually yielding undeniable generational breakthroughs.
Exactly. The corporate rollout is deeply flawed, but the capabilities of the models are compounding at an astonishing rate.
Take OpenAI's GPT 5.5 Instant. This is their lightweight model designed for edge devices. The source data shows a 52.5% drop in hallucinated claims in high-stakes fields like medicine, law, and finance.
Which is vital if we're trusting it to make real decisions.
Right, and it just scored an 81.2 on the AIM 2025 math test. That isn't just an incremental update. That is a massive jump in reliable reasoning.
And when you apply that level of reliable reasoning to hard scientific discovery, specifically integrating AI with quantum computing, we are seeing milestones that were considered absolute science fiction 5 years ago.
Yes, this was the most fascinating piece of the briefing for me. IBM's quantum computing division partnered with the Cleveland Clinic and Riken. And in October 2024, the absolute limit of what they could simulate was a protein complex spanning 10 atoms.
Right, and 10 atoms is practically microscopic in the context of human biology. It's nothing.
But today, using 2 IBM quantum computers paired with traditional supercomputers, they successfully simulated protein complexes of up to 12,635 atoms.
It's an incredible leap.
I know that number is much bigger, but help me understand the actual mechanism here. Like, why does simulating 12,000 atoms matter to you, the listener?
Well, Serpil Erzurum from the Cleveland Clinic explained this beautifully. Proteins are the workhorses of human cells. They fold and twist into highly specific three-dimensional shapes.
Okay.
When a pharmaceutical company tries to cure a disease, they're essentially trying to build a drug molecule that acts as a key, fitting perfectly into the 3D lock of a targeted protein.
And historically, finding that key requires years of trial and error in a physical lab. You're just mixing things and hoping.
Exactly. You are guessing how the molecules will bind. But if you can digitally simulate a massive 12,000 atom protein complex with quantum accuracy, you don't have to guess anymore.
Wow.
You can see the exact 3D structure on a screen and simulate millions of drug interactions in minutes to find the perfect fit. We are moving from a paradigm of trial and error medicine to bespoke, structurally simulated therapies.
So it radically speeds up identifying how to treat deadly infections and complex genetic diseases.
Yes, the underlying technology has life-saving reality behind it, regardless of all the corporate friction and lawsuits.
So we need to synthesize all of this for you, the listener.
Yeah.
We started with the decentralization of intelligence. What we are witnessing is a frantic, incredibly expensive race to reshape the physical world.
Because the computational demands of these models have grown so massive that they can no longer be contained in isolated desert facilities. The infrastructure is literally spilling over.
Right. It is spilling over via MRC packet spraying to keep the networks alive. It is spilling onto the exterior walls of our neighborhoods with liquid-cooled SPAN boxes.
It's moving into custom hardware in your pocket.
And it is ruthlessly rewriting the nature of white-collar work. In this era of mandated AI productivity, the burden of adapting is being pushed to the edge just as aggressively as the compute power is.
Yeah.
You are the edge. Your phone, your house, your daily job description.
Which leaves us with a final question to ponder. We began with the image of a glowing brain contained in a glass jar. But if Frontier Labs successfully place a 24/7 natively sensing AI agent into your pocket, and utility companies bolt a liquid-cooled data center onto the outside wall of your home,
Yeah.
at what point does your personal private space end and the world's decentralized AI infrastructure begin?
Something to mull over the next time your devices silently update in the background. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you, and we will see you next time.
That concludes our forensic briefing for May 6th. The strategic signal for today is the edge ultimatum. Centralized compute is running out of power, and centralized software is running out of efficiency. OpenAI building its own smartphone and NVIDIA mounting data centers on suburban homes proves that the intelligence layer must move to the edge of the network. But as PayPal and Coinbase are demonstrating, the drive for efficiency is ruthless. When companies can install autonomous agents to do the work of thousands of employees, the nature of white-collar labor is permanently altered. If you want to own your infrastructure instead of being managed by it, check the show notes for the AI Executive Toolkit. And as a special bonus for our community, we have exclusive discount codes for Google Workspace and my AI and Machine Learning Tutor Pro apps. You can find the email address to claim those directly in the show notes below. This episode was sponsored by A Area. Subscribe to the DJAMGAMIND channel on Apple Podcasts to always listen completely ads-free. I am Anna. Stay sharp and keep unraveling the future.
And before you go, if your company is building the tools that power the workflows we talked about today, I'd love to showcase them to this audience. We don't just run ads, we build technical simulations that prove your value. Let's build something together. Visit jamgamind.com/partners to get started. Until next time, keep building.